Every now and then, you happen to stumble on a piece of art that reaches into you and touches all the right chords, generating a set of feelings that will forever be etched into yourself, no matter what might happen in your life. Sometimes it can be a song or a movie, sometimes it's a painting or a particular book, and sometimes can be a manga or an anime. By itself, it can completely change your life, giving you hope and a reason to keep fighting. But when it reaches multiple people at once, it can become something bigger. It can become a movement. It can change the world. It can save the world. This is the story of a manga that takes this concept and make it its core theme, carrying this message throughout all its pages. This is the story of 20th Century Boys. Hello everyone, it's Pietro here. As always, I hope you enjoy the work that I'm doing on this channel. I love to talk about this wonderful media and always share with you my opinion on it. If you want to discuss about this manga or ask me anything else, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe to this channel to be notified every time I release a new video. And now, back to the video. Some of you might know that my favorite manga ever written is 20th Century Boys from Naoki Urasawa, one of the most consistent and prolific mangaka artists of the modern era. I always wanted to produce a sort of homage, trying to capture its many phases in a long-form love letters to this incredible story. So to prepare myself for the task, I decided to read all of it once again, to refresh my memory on all the tiny details that Urasawa was able to throw in this manga. But as I began to go through its pages, I started to realize something about its content. Being because on my first read I was younger and less prone to catch the nuance of the opera, or maybe because of key events recently happening around the world, my thoughts and feelings about the manga slowly started shifting. Before, there was fascination for an original sci-fi story that took an arguably wacky premise and somewhat made it work, delivering a thrilling and engaging experience from the point of view of multiple characters. Now, my fascination switched more to the harsh critique of the modern society, of blind sheep ready to follow any figure that will promise them salvation, and the almost clockwork perfection of the pacing of the narrative that build up page after page until the climactic ending. This time around I went into the opera already knowing what to expect, so I decided to just let go of any prejudice I had still present in me from the first read and let myself be carried along by it. When first I opened the volumes, my mind immediately jumped to the past, to a simpler time in my life, where child's play and weird passing of sessions over the smallest activity were the most important things in the world. Playing hide and seeks, taking part in made-up battles against an evil enemy, and tons of drawing about the weirdest things. Specifically, I remember that I loved drawing about big kaijus leveling down cities and giant robots piloted by us going in to save the day in heroic fashion. You might think, child play? Robot fighting monsters? What the hell have all of this to do with this manga? And the answer will be, well, everything. To understand what I mean by that, we first have to talk about the plot and storytelling approach that Urasawa deploys to give life to it. Our story starts in 1969, in a small rural neighborhood of Japan, where an ordinary group of friends is preparing to spend the summer vacation together after building a rudimentary secret base made of twigs and grass in the middle of an abandoned field. Their plan is, for the rest of the holidays, to read manga, listen to foreign music on the radio, and sometimes get a peek into R-rated magazines stole from their parents. The gang is formed by an ensemble of pretty stereotypical members. There is the leader, the fat one, the smart but clumsy, the knucklehead and the shy one, plus other classmates joining as the times pass. But one fated afternoon, out of boredom, they decide to write a book about an evil organization devoted to the destruction of the world, and the plots that such malicious group would use to get to that outcome. Then they deem themselves as the sole heroes capable of stopping their evil plans and save the world. This will come to be known as the Book of Prophecies. None of them have the idea that this pivotal moment, born by some innocent child plays, will affect the entire world in years to come. We then flash forward to almost 30 years later, at the dawn of the 21st century. The members of the groups are now all grown up. They almost all lost contact with each other as life got in the way, and child plays are now only reserved to the kids that some of them had along the way. Kenji, the former leader of the gang, took over the family business, now a small convenience store in the same town they grew up into. He no longer is the brave and hot-headed kid he once was, but he is actually portrayed as now a servile loser, always ready to bow to the authority in charge above him. The monotony of his life will be shaken by the delivery of a cryptic note from an old classmate, containing an eerie message warning him about a mysterious cult led by a man only known as the Friend and the symbol of such group. A chain of dramatic events will start to unfold after this moment. Events that increasingly resemble what they once wrote as kids in the Book of Prophecies, and various clues will point in the Friend's cult direction as the culprit of such acts. It will become pretty clear that the only person who would know about such prophecies was part of the original gang way back in 1969, and was now bringing that book into reality. Here starts an investigation for the real identity of the Friend, as the former gang gets back together once again to try to stop him from the foretold destruction of the world. Who is behind the cult? Who is behind the mask? And why are they doing this? Urasawa takes us on a thrilling hunt for the truth, as the world around our protagonists will crumble to dust. Every time you will believe to be close to the solution, Naoki-sensei will completely subvert your expectations, questioning the reality of what you think you know about the story. Flashback and flash forward are used with masterful grace to slowly reveal small pieces of the puzzle at a time, and often completely rewriting what you thought you knew about the characters and the story up to that point. He never stagnates in a certain section. Instead, he will abruptly jump between the characters' points of view just as that part is reaching its climax, twisting and turning the plot at almost every new page. You will be engrossed by the mystery of the Friend and his identity, and Urasawa will keep you on your toes for the entire duration of the manga until the very last page of the last volume, and I will even argue beyond that too. Throughout the manga, you will have a feeling of familiarity, of a world similar to ours, but at the same time somewhat different. And that's all thanks to the real pop culture reference that the mangaka decided to portray in the story. Starting with its name, 20th Century Boys, a song from a glam rock band of the 70s called T-Rex. Urasawa let us peek into his memories here, painting a distorted picture of his childhood, a really specific time in Japanese history. The nation was being swept by a wind of rebellion. The Western counterculture of the 70s was getting in every household through magazines and radio waves, enthralling an entire generation with its messages. The author was a son of the atom, growing in a post-war economic boom Japan, where mechas were a symbol of peace and modern ingenuity, and globalization was starting to become a much more prominent factor in every nation policy, culminating in the 1970s Osaka World Expo. But it was also a period of fear. The Cold War was in full swing, and discussion about bombs and imminent world destruction were omnipresent between the kids of the time. 20th Century Boys is in part a story about Urasawa's childhood, and he described the atmosphere of the time masterfully when he visits it in its pages. This manga, to some of you, with the 2021 hindsight, might seem ironically prophetical in its portrayal of the near future. It is difficult not to see the similarities that page after page unveil a world that easily might have been our own today, if things in the past year or so went in a different, much more sinister way. Global pandemic, cult of a charismatic leader, misinformation, fear of your neighbor, social repression, and media manipulation. All of these are themes and plot devices that the author uses to paint a dystopian society, where freedom is real only on paper, and where the brainwashed masses follow the leadership without any question asked. It would be remiss of me if I did not talk about Naoki Urasawa's art style. 20th Century Boys come in a perfect time in the life of the author. By the time he started to work on this manga, he already completed countless other stories, experimented with narrative tropes, themes, character developments, and more importantly with art styles. Where in titles like Pineapple Army, Master Keaton, or Yawara, his stroke was lighter and more playful, in later mangas like Happy, Monster, and 20th Century Boys, Urasawa will finally express the full maturity of his own iconic style, with dirtier and more realistic character expressions, accentuating a particular feature that will make them unique from anyone else in the world. This evolution is easy to explain when learning about his upbringing in this industry. Naoki Urasawa started his career as the Daigen for Osamu Tezuka, the god of manga itself. The Daigen in the manga industry is a sort of assistant that, in case the mangaka would not be able to deliver the required chapter in time, will have the responsibility of submitting pre-made replacement tables to fulfill the weekly release. You can see the influence of Tezuka's style in his first couple of publications, an influence that will not stay there for long, but imparting to Urasawa invaluable lessons about manga and its industry. But the way he designed and drew its characters is just a piece of the complex puzzle that Urasawa used to give life to its diverse cast. A huge appeal of Urasawa's writing is the almost manic attention to details that he deployed when creating every single characters in its manga, eviscerating their psyche to an almost uncomfortable degree. From the main protagonist of the story to a Yakuza member that appeared for just one frame, he put the same effort in depicting the complexity of the human existence, giving us a reason to care about all the souls that inhabit its pages. They say that a character only exists when it walks on stage, and dies as soon as they leave it. I will argue that Urasawa's character never really dies, but will actually linger in the story well after their part is fulfilled. This becomes even more apparent when reading his manga the second time, where tiny details and characters from the first volume will show their influence down to the very last chapters. And that's in a way the main theme that flows under the ink left by the mangaka, an unseen stream that placidly runs through the story, remaining invisible most of the time, but every so often sipping on the surface, leaving a small pond of information here and there for us to find. 20th Century Boys take the concept of the ripple effect, that even the most inconsequential action taken by a group of kids could completely change the course of history. A book written as a game, a destroyed secret base, a stolen badge, and a song played on a speaker. It reminds us that as insignificant as you might feel, you can too make a difference and change the life of millions. You can also be a hero and save someone else without even realizing it. Maybe it's a small good deed you did for a stranger. Maybe it's something you do as your job. Or maybe it's a piece of art you made in your spare time. Urasawa imbued this manga with a message of hope for a better future for all humanity, believing that we all have what it takes to be a good person, to be a hero, and tell us that even something as simple as a song can inspire a revolution and save the world.